Okay, thank you. Yes, hello everyone. I want to talk to you about how I use Web 2.0 and social media in what I do. And the talk's really going to look at these three topics here. I use it to learn, to share, and to create. But before I go into that, I just want to talk to you a little bit about who I am. As I say, I'm Rob Scott. I'm an architect, and I work for John Lyle Architects, not far, just down the road. And in the last few years, I've been very fortunate to work on some really, really great buildings. Just looking at these three here in particular, on the top left there, that's a project in Ipswich, a really nice mixed-use development scheme with approximately 300 or so flats, with lots of retail as well. And at the core of that development is on the bottom right there. You see Dance East, which is a fantastic world-class dance facility, which was built within the centre of that development. And then on the top right, I was the project architect for the Olympic pumping station, which was completed in January this year. And you see in the background at the top of that picture, that's the Olympic Stadium. And you see in the distance. And we do a lot of infrastructure work, and that's been really interesting as well. Three of the things I've been doing a lot over the last few years. We also do a lot in education. John Lyle Architects is one of the founding members of the consortium Architecture for Education, where several practices have come together to work collaboratively on education projects. We deal with all kinds of different education projects, from very small to very large, all over the country. Just giving you a flavour of some of the stuff that we do, from nursery schools through primary and secondary through to special needs schools as well. And it's interesting what you can see on the screen here now, particularly with the infrastructure stuff and the education. I think as an architect it's very important for me to understand the clients and the end users in any of the stuff that we do, and particularly engineering, understanding the function. And I found that through social media and Web 2.0 I can really learn a heck of a lot about what's going on in the world of infrastructure and in education, the way that education is changing. I use social media for that purpose. So I'm going to talk about that in a bit more in a minute. I'm also a teacher of first-year architecture students at Nottingham University, and I'll mention that in a minute. And also, another really important bit about who I am is Twitter. And Twitter's been brilliant. I started using it over a year ago, and it's not that long. And I've met loads of you here today, previously on Twitter. It's a brilliant way to meet like-minded people and start up a discussion, as many of you already know anyway, and also to get the latest information on any particular topic. So starting from there, that's one of the ways that I learn. And top of the slide there on the right, that's my mobile phone. I'm kind of addicted to it. It's with me all the time, and the first thing in the morning I might turn it on and have a look at what's going on Twitter. And often on the train and into work in the morning, I'll just have a quick browse through. I follow about 700 people, and it's a really varied range of people, from architects, urban designers all over the world, and also entertainment, comedians, that kind of thing. And it's great for the cricket at the moment. A lot of people down under keep tweeting what's going on, and it's a really good way to keep in touch with that. There are lots of educationalists on there as well. But it's a continual stream, so I'm not always looking at it, and you just have a flick through, as I say, on the bus. But if I turn up, look away from it, I miss something, and I don't see it. So I need a more focused way of tackling that. And I use something called hootsuite.com, and I know Bernie's been on that earlier today as well. And that's a brilliant way. It gives you a series of panels on your computer. Again, you do it on the internet, and you can access this anywhere in the world. Just log in, and these separate columns are all to do with different topics. You see on the left there, that's the British Council for School Environments, a recent conference. And anytime anyone mentions that, this pops up in my little column here. So on a Monday morning, I'll just turn this on and have a quick scroll down, and I can see everything that's been talked about that subject. In the middle, that is a list of people who I think are interesting to do with education. And anytime one of those make a tweet, it will appear in that central column. So again, I can just quickly flick through there. And this one here I've highlighted, Bob Harrison. He's a really interesting chap in the field of education. And here he's talking about a presentation which was recently made talking about mobile learning. So just by clicking on that link, I can very quickly learn something new about the way that education is changing. I also use LinkedIn, and I'm sure many of you will be familiar, or if not, you're already on there. It's a great way to meet and connect with people you already know, or to make new connections and network online. A lot of people tend to just use it as a place to put your CV, which I find really surprising, because there's obviously so much more to it. And one of the things that I love about it is the groups function. And you see here, I'm active in about probably about 10 or so groups, but I'm a member of many more. I should really have a bit of a cleaning out session because there's too many. Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, looking on here, there's three of the ones that I find most interesting at the moment. The top two are education. Again, that's the Centre for School Design on the top, and Free Schools group in the middle. And then the bottom right, this is a group which is talking about energy from waste, which Max was talking about earlier. I'm not an engineer, but these guys are talking about some stuff that's really way above my head. But it's fascinating because it is important for me to be able to design the buildings properly, to understand a little bit about how these buildings are functioning. And this is something that you can follow on LinkedIn. And I'm just zooming in a little bit there. That this is one of Ian Fordham's groups. And here he's talking about free schools and the way that the education market is changing with free schools. He's posted on this group a link to one of the documents he's put, and then people are starting to comment on that below. Ian recently posted something asking people to send in their comments on how they reacted to the old Building Schools for the Future program. And he was compiling this. He was basically asking, what would you say to Michael Gove about the good, bad and the ugly of the old system? And the response to that was remarkable. There were many, many different comments which were posted by educationalists, architects, contractors, and together that formed a really interesting piece of work for me to learn more about that. I'm sure it was really useful for everyone involved as well. So LinkedIn is really the second way that I use social media to learn. Moving on. Sorry, that was Bob Harrison.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So yeah, moving on to the sharing aspect of Web 2.0. As I say, we are part of Architecture Education, and that is the three architects are Greenhill Jenner, John Lyle Architects, and Sarah Wigglesworth Architects. And we also are joined by Dr. Chris French, who's an expert in education matters. And I think what makes us unique is the way that we are small to medium-sized practices, all award-winning design firms themselves. But we come together and design collaboratively. And that way we are able to punch above our weight, and we put design very much at the very forefront of everything we do. So these images here, these show one of our regular peer review sessions where we were working on a new primary school in the east of London in Barking, and we went to Sarah Wigglesworth's lovely offices just to pen everything up and have a discussion about how the design was going and where we were at that stage. And it's like being back at university again. Everything's pinned up, and you're kind of feeling a bit nervous beforehand, hoping that some people don't ask any difficult questions, and it all comes out, and the design changes and develops, and everything is much better because of that. It's not something that we can do all the time. We still work out of our own separate offices across London, so we needed a way that we could collaborate but do it remotely. And the way that we found to do that was a website called DimDim, slightly unusual name for that one as well. And this is a place where you can upload a document or a drawing, in this case a plan, and you can have people in all of our separate offices all looking at the same thing and commenting on it. So I can be talking to them on the phone, and we can be discussing about the way that, for instance here, we want to improve the connection between the interior space and the exterior with views down that corridor, or here, these classrooms, maybe we want to improve their local connection to the external teaching spaces. So that's some of the things that we can have the dialogue going backwards and forwards. And in a meeting that just takes half an hour, we can get a lot done, and we haven't spent the time to travel across London, which is going to be at least an hour for everybody. And we can just have this discussion, do it very quickly, then I can go back to work on the project, and then later in the afternoon we can do the same again. And I think what's really interesting is expanding this and taking this further. It means that we can show our work in progress and have a very quick meeting with our clients, the head teacher of the school or the senior staff, the senior teachers, and we can very quickly get feedback on how they feel the design is going. And that's something that I'm very excited about. So, yeah, moving on. The final aspect is, as I say, creating. As I say, I'm a tutor of the first year students at Nottingham University, and this was a site visit which we made about 3 weeks ago for their first major design project. So on this day we went out, a very, very blustery day in late autumn, walking around, and the students need to walk around and find their perfect site to suit their particular client. And I was going around and having a chat with them as they were asking questions. And as I was walking around, again, using my mobile phone, I was using the inbuilt GPS tracking in my phone and then uploading it to the internet. So if you see on the left there, that's the route that I took around this Attenborough Nature Reserve. And the red mark is exactly where I was walking. As I was walking around, I was taking photographs as well using my phone, which was tagging each photograph with the GPS coordinates. So as I was walking around, taking all these different photographs, it's linking them to the map as well. And this was really, really useful. So when I get back to the studio or back to the office, I can look at all this information and I can see where each of these was taken. Because as you walk around, it might look quite similar from the aerial view, but the actual feeling on the site is very different depending on exactly where you are. As I say, this was a really pretty rubbish and cold day, and half the tutors were there, half the tutors were back at home in the warm, and they didn't get to go. And so this thing is really useful, this method, so that everyone can get to see it, because in the teaching role, obviously I need to understand the site to be able to advise the students on how their design should respond to it. And this is a good example here of an area of the site which has very, very tall birch trees, and a lot more light gets into there than some of the areas which are very low-lying tree canopies, which are very dark. This here you see my track going backwards and forwards on that part of the site. Very popular with students. I'm not quite sure why there's a few of the students in that part of the photo there. And here, coming back to the visitor centre at the end of my trip. And I'm really excited by this. I think I'm encouraging my students to take this kind of thing up when they go on their next project, doing their next site survey, because there's 150 of these students walking around. And as we create this kind of content and upload it to the internet, it's something which is then a resource that other people can use. And you can imagine that 150 students walking around can create a lot of really interesting content. And that's the way it's going. And this is all what user-generated content and Web 2.0 is about. And location is huge, and it's going to be growing faster and faster. You look in the shops nowadays, the entry-level phones have all got GPS on them, so this is something we can all do very, very easily, and it's only going to get better. Looking at that aspect of it, this is an image taken from OpenStreetMap, so you see the whole of the Attenborough Nature Reserve there on the left, and then we've zoomed right in here, looking at the cafe at the end. And OpenStreetMap is brilliant because it's all been created by, again, enthusiastic individuals. It's not been produced by the mega corporations like Google or Yahoo. It's all done by people generally walking around using, again, their GPS tracking devices to mark on where the different routes are and creating a really detailed map. Previously, I was really sniffy about this. I always used Google as my main source of information for mapping until I looked at this and found that actually on this particular site, the level of detail you've got is much greater on the open source OpenStreetMap. You've got all the paths marked on, the car parks are there, and if we overlay over the top, the best Google can do is Barton Lane, which is just one road, and then after that, it doesn't get any further. Obviously, Google's got the advantage of the satellite imagery, but there's a lot more detail involved in the OpenStreetMap. If we go across here, you can see they've even marked on areas of reeds here called the Millennium Reed Bed. They've got gates. They've got the name of that pond at the top there. And this is all being added to constantly. People are updating the open all the time, and it's very exciting, I think, to see this level of information coming together online, freely open and available. And I think this is the kind of thing that we can all be adding to. And so I've kind of gone very, very quickly through those different things. Just to kind of summarise, I'd say that these are the three main things that I use social media and Web 2.0 for. But they're all, really interchangeable and swapping around between them. I'll leave that slide up for a second. These are the links that I've talked about, just in case anyone wants to jot those down or I spoke too quickly. I've also not mentioned the fact that we, John Lyle Architects, do a lot of blogging, and that is kind of in the share thing in the middle. But again, that's all about learning and sharing and creating. There you go. Thank you very much.